We are right smack in the middle of the NBA playoffs into round two, and on the line to talk about the NBA playoffs and the team he covers for the New York Post, the New York Knicks, we welcome in Marc Berman. Marc, Peter Schwartz, how are you?
Hey, doing great, Peter. Thanks for having me on.
Marc, thanks for coming on for a few minutes. We'll talk about the NBA playoffs and the entire landscape of the NBA in a minute or two, but let's start with the team that you cover that made the playoffs this year, and they were ousted in 4 straight games by the Celtics in the first round. That's the New York Knicks. And after so many years of not making the playoffs, do you consider, even though they got swept in the first round, was this a successful season for the Knicks?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if they got swept and they were healthy, I'd have some reservations, but we'll never know how good they could have been if they were fully healthy in that first round. Stoudemire playing the final 3 games with the bad back, and Billups missing those final 3 games. But they have those 3 guns right now, Anthony, Stoudemire, and Billups, to build around, and Donnie Walsh has a lot of work ahead of him to get more pieces, to build the depth, and to get a center on this roster. But, yeah, they made nice strides, and, you know, first playoff berth since 2004. I just wish they could have been healthy against Boston, because I think they could have given them a run for their money.
There was a lot of talk maybe that they were not going to bring Chauncey Billups back. They had an option to bring him back or let him become a free agent, but he became a huge part. You know, at first he was a throw-in the Carmelo Anthony trade, but he wound up playing a huge part. He did have some injury issues. Obviously, the last 3 games of the playoffs he missed, but they do elect to bring him back. Is this an indication of how much they think of him, or is this just a stopgap until they maybe make a run at Chris Paul after next year?
Well, the master plan has been to make the run at Chris Paul in 2012. The concern is Billups going to be healthy next season? They really want to have a big year next year. I mean, they want to, you know, not just make the playoffs. They want to make another step, you know, get into the second round and contend for the conference finals. And a lot will be depending on how Chauncey Billups holds up physically. He's going to be 35. Tony Douglas has proven he's really not a starting point guard. He's more of a combo guard. But, yeah, they can also use Chauncey's contract as trade bait next season if Chris Paul does go on the block. But, again, you know, the Knicks still have to get very lucky with this free agent stuff in 2012 and this summer in 2011. You know, Donnie Walsh really has quite a job still to do.
Now, we know that Chauncey Billups is going to be back. The question is the guy that pulled off the trade to bring him and Carmelo Anthony, and that, of course, is Donnie Walsh, the Knicks president. Is he going to be back next year? There was some talk that he was going to sit down with Knicks owner James Dolan in the foreseeable future to talk about that. In your mind, is Donnie Walsh going to come back and, you know, try and continue or even finish the job that he started?
Yeah, I mean, we reported last week that, you know, he did speak with Dolan. They had a very good talk, and, you know, they're close to a deal. Nothing has been announced yet, but I'm told from sources that things look really good. You know, Donnie doesn't want to go into retirement off a 4-game sweep in the first round, and he is motivated now to continue building this team, because they lost a lot of pawns in that Carmelo trade. So, you know, Walsh is very meticulous, and he's taking his time with this decision, but all sources are saying that he would return next year.
And Marc, last thing on the Knicks before we turn to the rest of the NBA. You know, Mike D'Antoni has come under fire by Knicks fans and the media this year because he finally had a team that had a chance to win, but he is still under fire for the team's lack of consistent defense and maybe some of his X's and O's decisions late in games. Does Mike D'Antoni deserve another year, and does he come back on the hot seat next year?
Well, he'll definitely be on the hot seat next season, but, you know, he's been told by Donnie, you know, that, you know, he'll be back. Donnie is a big fan of his still. He would like him to play a bigger lineup at times. He'd obviously like him to be more defensive-oriented, but he takes the blame for the roster being shuffled so many times during his 3 seasons. I believe D'Antoni's coached 56 players in 3 years, which is a tremendous amount. And, you know, Donnie takes the blame for it. Even this going into the season, they thought there would be more stability. They thought Anthony would become a free agent, and they wouldn't be this crazy trade in February. So Donnie really likes him and still has faith in him. But next season, it's his last year of his contract. If he doesn't get it done, he's gone.
We're talking to Marc Berman of the New York Post. He covers the Knicks and the NBA for the New York Post, and you're watching Schwartz on Sports here on Sports.com. Marc, let's turn our attention now to the NBA playoffs that are into its second round right now, and the series that everybody wanted to see, the Celtics and the Heat in round two. Game one went to the Heat. Do you expect a long, dragged-out, rock'em sock'em series between these two clubs?
I'm not sure. Miami was leading in game two before I got on the phone. Pierce had a little bit of an ankle thing, but going into the series, yes, I expected it to be possibly 6-7 games. I will say that Miami is looking very, very strong. They're really coming together. Dwayne Wade had a terrific game one. It would not surprise me if Miami won in 5 or 6 games. Boston did not impress me fully against the Knicks. In fact, those first 2 games they should have lost. They gained some momentum in the final 2 games against the Knicks. But I'll tell you, Miami is starting to really show what they can do, and I'd be surprised if the Celtics won that series.
And out in the other series, you've got the favorites lost all 3 game ones. The Bulls lost game one. Oklahoma City dropped their opener. And the Lakers last night blew a big lead in the second half in losing to Dallas. Of those 3, which one stunned you the most?
Probably the Lakers losing to Dallas, but I still think the Lakers are going to come back and win that series. Kobe Bryant, he could have won the game at the end, and I think he's, although he's been very hard on himself, saying he's not a clutch player anymore, I think the Lakers are going to come back. The Memphis Grizzlies are becoming the best story right now in the NBA, and ex-Knick Zach Randolph was called by Kevin Durant the best power forward in basketball. He looks ugly on the court. He's very unorthodox, but he is powering the Grizzlies after beating San Antonio and taking game one from Oklahoma. I can't wait for tonight to see what they do in game two. A great, great story. The Bulls are vulnerable to me, and I'm not going to be stunned if Atlanta wins that series. The Bulls did have the best record in basketball, but, this is the playoffs. This is Tom Thibodeau's first playoff. That series could go either way.
Derrick Rose, despite the loss in game one, Derrick Rose wins the NBA MVP award. To me, he was the most consistent player start to finish in the league. Do you agree with that? You think he deserved to be the NBA's most valuable player?
Without a doubt. I mean, the Bulls are not the Heat, and they had a better record than the Heat. When Derrick was at the Garden late in the season, just a couple of weeks ago, he put on such a show. He looked like a mini Jordan. It's just amazing how he has turned, not just to become a floor general, but he makes these spectacular highlight plays that just lifts that team. He's such a good leader. He's done everything for that franchise. He easily deserved MVP.
No question about it. Last thing, Marc, before we let you go, and obviously everyone's excited about the playoffs and the road to the NBA Finals, but the NBA is about to embark in the same territory that the NFL is going through right now, and that is the threat of a lockout in the NBA at the end of this season. And things are not looking good. David Stern has not had many promising things to say about the talks. Billy Hunter hasn't really spoken that much about it. In your mind, do you think, as a lot of people think, do you think the league is heading towards work stoppage Armageddon?
Unfortunately, I do. Speaking to the players and some NBA officials, it looks like it's going that way. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a repeat of 1999, another 50-game season. With this season beginning sometime in December or January. I would not be shocked at all. I would hate to see it. This sport is going so great. It's a shame that some of these NBA owners are crying poverty. The problem is the NBA owners, the ones that are losing money, they want the lockout. They would rather not see a season than
Yep.
lose money, and that's the biggest threat right now.
It would be a terrible thing to happen. It's awful what's going on in the NFL right now, and it would be a shame for it to happen in the NBA. Marc, thanks so much for joining us for a few minutes. Enjoy the rest of the playoffs. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, thanks so much, Peter. Take it easy.